Hello and welcome to Beyond the Boundary. My name is Josh. It's fantastic to be back for round 7 this week. I got Nick to my right. How are you, Nick?
A bit flat after the weekend, but I'll cope.
I don't blame you. And on my left is Vinay. How are you, mate?
I'm very good, boys. I'm looking forward to not a mediocre week of football, but a more plain week of football.
Not too many blockbusters this
Yes.
week.
Not too many, except for the one on Friday night. We'll get to that in a second.
But I'm still looking forward to it.
Absolutely, but it's a bit doom and gloom in the room at the moment. All our teams had pretty ordinary losses on the weekend.
First time that's happened. Not happy.
Yeah.
Hopefully they can bounce back this week.
Absolutely. All right, boys, our tips. Can we move on straight away?
Geisen opening up an early lead here, guys, and I reckon it's time you got a bit worried. I think it's 2 tips I'll lead by now. I got 5 and the other 2 got 4 on the weekend.
I'll lift my game. I'll come back.
You'll come back.
I'll come back.
Geisen will fall off.
And of course, during our absence, I did open up that lead, as I said I would, with tipping Geelong over Hawthorn.
That was the week before.
Up the lead early. Anyway,
round 7, Nick, kick us off.
Carlton versus Collingwood Friday night at the MCG. Last time these two teams played, it was Collingwood by 41 points, who have a massive win on Anzac Day on the weekend. Josh, what did you think of their game?
Yeah, I was there on Friday in the first quarter. I was sitting there pretty happy, and I was happy with the way my boys were going. But Collingwood steamed back. They got back into the game. They chipped away and got all the momentum back and were level at half time. And the rest is history, basically. They ran over the top of us. I really liked Steele Sidebottom's game. I thought he was the barometer to get them back into the game. He kicked 3 goals in that second quarter. But obviously, Dane Swan, he was absolutely magnificent. 26 disposals, 26 disposals, 4 goals. Doesn't mind playing against Essendon. He before this game, I was going to mention it before we cancelled last week's show, but he averaged 33.4 disposals in his last 8 games against Essendon, 3 over 40. So
and
doesn't mind the Bombers.
What a great way to get back into form, going up forward, booting those 4 goals. And, he'd had a couple of off weeks leading up to it, so it was great to see him get back to his best on the weekend.
Absolutely. All right, Vinay, the Blues, 2 in a row. They beat your boys on the weekend. What'd you take out of that game?
Look, at the end of the day, I think Carlton, they probably deserved to win because they took their chances. Mark Murphy, I'm going to highlight him first of all. I think he, at the start of the year, was getting a lot of flack from not only football supporters, but from his own fan base, that he wasn't a very good leader. I think a few weeks back, Josh was actually considering saying that he should be dropped. Yeah, so he did. He was, and that's not because Josh has anything against him, but just because that's how he was playing for.
And at the time, he probably deserved to, but he came out the next week against who'd they beat, the Bulldogs.
Yes,
and had a very good game, so he responded, and that's what we want. We want to see the captain lead by example.
Exactly. He is now laid. Here's a stat for you boys. He's now laid 23 tackles in 2 weeks. So, if
anything over 10 tackles is just absolutely elite.
So he ripped up the tag that Mitch Wallace tried to put on him last week. And Scott Selwood and Brad Shepherd, tried tagging him with varying levels of success. I think West Coast realised that Selwood's probably too valuable as a midfielder to have him running around with Murphy. But in the end, he was a difference maker. He was damaging by foot. He had a lot of the ball. He kicked a goal in crucial stages. He tackled hard. He had a lot of contested ball as well. I think he's something that's really sparked Carlton. And even Heath Scotland, he was done and dusted at the start of the year. He was on the rookie list. I think he was delisted, which is very odd. You don't see a man at that age who, a couple of years ago, he looked to be arguably in their best, all of a sudden being delisted. He's come back. He's got a new role. He's playing up forward as well. And, he's providing something. Dale Thomas is starting to, had the 20 disposals, laid some tackles, kicked a goal. So he's starting to come back as well. I think Carlton, if they wanted to basically decide the circumstances in which they face Collingwood, this would be it. They would have said, we want a fit and firing Mark Murphy. We want our, the guy that we've bought, Dale Thomas, to be firing. We want our forward line to wake up, which they have. 14-8 they kicked, and the week before they did well as well. So,
but they are coming up against a very informed Collingwood, who demolished North Melbourne the week before and then had a good win over Essendon on the weekend.
One thing I want to mention, Collingwood's twos played in the VFL against Essendon. Carl Martin had 30-something disposals and 6 goals. 6 goals to go with 30 disposals. So you'd think, even though Collingwood won, you got to give the man a chance at the top level if he's doing that well. They also had Ben Kennedy and Sam Dwyer do well.
Marley Williams not far away.
Taylor Adams had a blinder of a game as well. And I'll tell you what, that's the second time that Kyle Martin's played in the midfield, kicked 6 goals and got 30 touches against the Essendon VFL side.
The second time?
Second time. He did it to us last year as well. So, but another one that Nick just mentioned, Marley Williams, he played 3 quarters. I think he'll probably have another week in the VFL. He'll get that match fitness underneath him. Mind you, I think he could come straight back in. But Collingwood are going pretty well at the moment. Their back 6 looks settled. So I think Marley Williams may spend another week in the VFL and then push in the week after. Another one I want to touch on before we give our tips, Patrick Karnisis. He's played 2 games now in the VFL, coming back from osteitis pubis. And he's kicked 7 goals. So he may come into the side as well and add another avenue to goal, because Travis Cloke is struggling at the moment.
Right.
He's really struggling to get his hands on the ball and kick goals.
That's interesting, because Collingwood are actually using Jamie Elliott as more than just a forward pocket now. More and more you're seeing him finish with 20 disposals plus, and that's because they're letting him push up. In fact, the first centre clearance against Essendon, you'll notice that it went inside Essendon's 50, and the person that ended up with the ball was Jamie Elliott. So he actually started in the back line. So, they're really developing him as more of a utility, because they're realising that he's got more talent than just what a forward pocket would possess. So you're right. And one last thing, Alex Vasolo, Rodney Eade, Collingwood assistant manager, coach came out and said that he doesn't have any stress fractures. He's all right. The scans have cleared him. He'll probably miss this week. The week after that, they have the bye, so you'd think they'd give him this week off, and he will be back.
He looked devastated when he was subbed off. It looked like he might have done his navicular again. So
I think there was a lot of fear that it was the same foot that he did last year, but it never was. It was the other foot. Okay. It's just that somebody had stepped on his toes or something like that.
Okay,
very odd kind of injury to get, but he'll be back after the bye. Will Alex? Moving on to the tips, gentlemen.
I think I'll kick us off. Collingwood, they're in some great form at the moment. Carlton starting to find some kind of form, but I still think Collingwood will be too good. They'll win by 35 points.
Yeah, Collingwood too strong for me. They're just in some ripping form. They're in that top 4 that you spoke about, Vinay, at the start of the year, that you and I laughed at.
You might be getting a big head down here.
But it is only after 6 rounds. There's a long way to go.
Correct.
So, but I'll be tipping Collingwood by 32.
All right, cool. I'm actually not too sure, to be honest.
Really?
I'm not too sure. Last week, I think I might have mentioned it to one of you. I wasn't too sure about St. Kilda Brisbane, because St. Kilda seems to be one of those really, anything goes sides. I don't know. Carlton seems to be the kind of side that could get this done. I'm not sure.
Do you have the set to tip them?
We get into these kind of mindsets early in the season when after just 2 or 3 games we sort of make up our mind on certain teams. And have we lulled into that sense that Carlton are going to be a bad side this season?
Yeah, very good point you raise. And that's what I'm sort of fearing at the moment. Because often I feel that when I do give my tip, I sort of go, well, this team's better than that one, I'm going to tip them.
Yeah.
But I fail to consider the circumstances surrounding the match. So, Carlton, they've come off 2 very good wins. Their best players are now firing. Jared Waite was actually good for once. So, and you said it yourself, if Carlton never need a win, Waite needs to kick big. So I'm going to go Collingwood, but only by 10 points.
Very interesting. Hawthorn versus St.Kilda, Saturday afternoon at the MCG. Last time these 2 teams played, it was Hawthorn by 46 points. What do we think, gents?
From memory, these games aren't very exciting. I know last year's probably was very ordinary on a Friday night. A couple of years ago as well, when they played the MCG, it was quite ordinary.
Okay.
Cannot remember these sides playing 2 very good games, to be honest. So the Hawks, super response after their loss to Geelong the week before. They came out and took it to Richmond. Richmond's knocked them over the last 2 years.
Yep.
They came out and absolutely flogged them. And there's one bloke I want to talk about, but I'll let you guys have a say first. Cyril Rioli. Oh. Everyone says he's overrated. I don't think he's overrated. I think he's the best small forward in the game by the length of the Flemington Straight ×2.
Okay.
I think every commentator in the game at the moment has some kind of weird little obsession with Cyril Rioli. He's just sort of catching everybody's eye this season, especially. I'm one of the ones who I will admit I've never been his biggest fan. I think he has been pumped up a little bit more so than what his skill level will be, but I'm sure Josh will tell me otherwise in just a minute.
He doesn't. The thing with Cyril is he doesn't need 30 touches to change a game.
Yeah.
He only needs 10 to change the impact, change the way the game's played.
He does have that kind of air about him that he always does something special with the ball.
Yeah.
as you say, he doesn't need a big quantity of touches.
Well,
It's the quality of the ones he does have.
At one stage of the game, I was driving home in the car.
Yep.
Sirioli had those 4 goals, had 15 touches at 100% efficiency.
Yep.
So he uses the ball very, very well. He's quick. He's very dangerous around goals. Sets up his teammates. I just love him.
Thanks for that, Bruce. Now, Vinay, what were your thoughts on Hawthorn's demolition of Richmond on the weekend?
I thought it was pretty expected, to be honest. I mean, a lot of people are like, oh, yeah, Richmond, they've had their number in the past 2 years or whatever.
Yeah.
But come on, Hawthorn, they've come off what they would construe to be a disappointing loss to Geelong. They would have hoped to, first of all, win, and second of all, at least come closer, not lose by as much as they did. But, they came out, they were sore from that loss. And Richmond, I don't think they were ever going to win that, to be honest. Richmond have been all over the place this year. At the start of the year, we said they need to do something. They've got the list. They need to, they're like North Melbourne. One of those teams has gone on and used that list and shown that they are finals material. The other has gone the exact opposite direction and said, no, we're not finals material. So I think it was Hawthorn at their best, to be honest. They were playing free-flowing footy. As soon as there was that turnover in that back half for Hawthorn, Hawthorn's defensive 50, bang, that was it. Richmond were, dead to rights.
The Ricky Pettard handball into Cyril? Is that the one you're talking about?
Yes, for those of you that watch that. But, Roughhead, it's scary to think that they were able to kick, they were able to score over 100 without Roughhead. He kicked 1 goal that whole game.
I think Gunston only kicked 1 as well, didn't he?
Two. Gunston kicked 2. But, they've got so many contributors, Rioli, Bruce, Hill, Smith. So I reckon they're still extremely a powerhouse, and we have to really give them that credit that they have.
To Hawthorn's credit, something I've picked up on over the years is after these big games, which notably the Geelong one, which everyone, there's so much hype for it and it's always this giant game. The week after, even though they've lost, all these games, they don't throw all their eggs into the basket of this huge game. And they back it up the next week and have these really good performances. And they won by, 66 points against the Tigers. So it's amazing to see that even after such a hard-fought game that it was against Geelong the week before, that they can come out and put in probably their best performance of the season against Richmond.
Yeah.
Boys, the Saints went over to Wellington to take on the Brisbane Lions and probably let one slip. They had a big opportunity to go 4-2.
Oh, yeah.
It was a terrific effort by Brisbane. We'll get to them shortly, but yeah, you just never know with these how the season's going to pan out. You get a little bit of confidence on, you can get a bit of a run on.
Yep.
You just never know that the Saints, most of us tipped them to finish in the bottom 2.
Right.
But they've had a fantastic start to the year. They could go on with that. Could be one little game like this that could potentially cost them a spot in the final.
I'm not sure. Again,
I'm not saying that St Kilda will make the finals.
Yeah.
I'm just saying things can happen. Look at Port Adelaide last year.
Yeah.
They were in a similar position, reinvented their list and everything like that. Alan Richardson's come from Port Adelaide, done a lot of work with Ken Hinkley.
It's interesting.
It's just little games like this, win or lose, that could cost you that finals position.
You're right. I think St Kilda, watching St Kilda and watching West Coast, it was sort of a tale of two teams there. Both teams that probably should have won. Both teams that had plenty of chances to win. Not for lack of chances. It wasn't that they got completely outplayed. West Coast kicked 1-8, and I think St Kilda, they had 3 behinds in a row or 2 behinds. Farron Ray missed one from the goal square, or an open goal to win the game. So it's just a game about it all comes down to taking your chances ultimately. And the Saints, they're performing much better than what we thought they would. Essendon is no easy beat. They did that. They got that done. Adelaide are no easy beats. Oh, they lost to Adelaide, didn't they? Okay, sorry.
Comfortably. 84 points, I think it was.
Right, okay.
They're definitely no easy beats.
So but the Saints, they've done better than what we thought. 2 of us thought they'd finish 18th. I thought they'd finish 17th. So none of us really saw them winning more than maybe 2 or 3 games for the whole year.
Yeah. They've already got that.
Exactly, yeah. So I'm not sure. I don't think they can. Obviously, they won't be going in thinking, let's beat Hawthorn today. They'll be going in thinking, let's put in our best performance. Let's put in our best performance on the park. We've got some of the most talented young guns in the game right now.
Yeah.
Jack Billings.
Oh,
I like that kid a lot.
How good was Tom Curran on Tom Rockcliffe?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Nobody mentions this kid, but Tom Curran is almost a Clint Jones 2.0 right now. Like, nobody has managed to stop Tom Rockcliffe this year. This unheard of St Kilda youngster Tom Curran comes along, stops him. And then you got guys like Josh Saunders, Shane Savage actually looked very good on a wing, came on early and looked really, really good when he was allowed to play that free-flowing role.
Yeah.
So they've got a lot of positives.
Who are you tipping?
We could go all day about St Kilda there, but I'll be tipping Hawthorn by 69 points. I think Hawthorn were back to their best against Richmond, and they'll get the job done against the Saints this week.
Yep, I'm going to tip Hawthorn by about 50.
I'll be tipping Hawthorn to win this in a canter, about 87 points.
87 points.
That's a big win.
GWS versus Port Adelaide, Saturday afternoon at Star Track Oval. Last time these two teams met, it was Port Adelaide by 75 points, boys. How good were Port Adelaide on the weekend?
It's spotless, isn't it?
We've got
Star Track Oval, according to the AFL.com website.
Really? Yeah, okay.
I was this close to linking Port Adelaide's theme song to Nick's wall on Saturday.
Look, they were absolutely brilliant. Every area of the game.
They've got the
I'm
power
going to check
to
that.
win.
I swear it's at spotless.
It's
I'm going to check it.
It is at Spotless.
Okay.
It is at
You two go ahead.
No, it's not at Spotless. It's at SO, which I'm not sure what
Star
that is.
Trek Oval. I'm telling
Star
you.
Trek Oval.
Regard.
Hang on.
I
Let
can
me have a look.
guarantee you,
Anyway,
if it's not Star Trek Oval, I will do 100 live
Star
push-ups
Trek
on the
Oval.
show.
Interesting.
Okay, there you go. Thank God for that.
You thought it was at spotless.
do you think I'm not doing my research here?
Well, after last episode's effort on the run sheet, I had to double check.
Anyway,
What was it? That was like it was
There was
Fremantle
4 or
and St.
5.
Kilda I can't remember that. Yeah,
Fremantle and St Kilda at Etihad, I think it was.
it was worse than that. It was 2 interstate teams playing in Victoria. That's what it
I
was.
feel sorry for all the Port Adelaide and GWS teams who've just tuned in for the preview. Anyway,
Righto, Port Adelaide. How were they on Sunday night, Nick?
they were really good. I was trying to tell you that, actually. They were the first team this season to beat Geelong in the contested possession count, and it really showed. Every single contest around the ground, it was just Port Adelaide were just going in harder. You were seeing sort of a half-effort tackle from a Geelong player, and then just a swarm of Port Adelaide players just absolutely pummeling their opponents there. In the ruck, Lobie absolutely killed McIntosh. I thought that was another aspect of the game where they really dominated. And up forward, Robbie Gray was very, very good for them.
Oh yeah.
He's so underrated.
Josh does rate him very highly.
So underrated.
He's a very good player when he keeps the injury bugs away.
Absolutely. I don't use the word very often, but he's a gun.
He's a gun.
He's a gun.
Just
There
about
it
to
is.
say that. He's a gun. He's a gun.
There's one thing I want to bring up about Port Adelaide.
Yes.
They are no longer the underdog.
No.
They are becoming the hunted. Teams come up against them and want to beat them.
You mean the hunter?
No, they're becoming the hunted.
The hunted.
Port Adelaide are becoming the hunted.
Yes.
That's what he's saying.
Port Adelaide are becoming the hunted.
I was going to make this point myself.
Okay, I'm confused, but I'll go with it. Yep.
People are going after Port Adelaide wanting to beat them.
Correct.
Everyone wants to play Port Adelaide to see where they're at.
Not anymore.
Why?
I didn't want to play Port Adelaide given the form they're in.
No.
So you're just
he's-
backing up my point.
He's saying Port is a powerhouse.
Yeah,
as
so they're the
opposed
hunter.
yes.
You stay away from the hunter. All right, we'll go back to the game.
Can we get
boys.
back on track?
We'll leave
Vinay,
the hunter
would you agree with the statement that there are now 3 big powerhouses in the competition, being Geelong, Hawthorn, and Port Adelaide?
I would definitely agree with that.
That is the point Josh is trying to make.
Yes,
here.
I think one thing I wanted to mention about Port Adelaide was their work rate was off the charts. They were up by 50 points against Geelong, and they were still tackling like it was the game was like decided by one.
It's still
kick or
in the
something,
balance. Yeah.
There was one point where I think it was Joel Selwood who got a free kick in the centre. He played on, tried to get around Ollie Wines, who was still on the ground. Ollie Wines just still on his knees managed to drag the Geelong skipper back down to the ground.
Yep.
And that was in the last quarter when your team's up by 50 points. That's effort, that's work rate. Ken Hinkley at 3/4 time brought all his players in, seemed to have a very, very, sort of emotional kind of chat with them. And that's what the club is really built on these days, it looks like. If you go to the Port Adelaide website, there's a really good video of Hinkley talking to his players, and a lot of it is on emotion.
Yep.
He's talking about how much faith and trust he puts in them and stuff like that. So
Something I raised with Josh on the weekend. How much do we think Adelaide Oval is having an impact on Port Adelaide's performances? Do we think they can keep up this kind of form in Melbourne or in Sydney or in Perth? They've already showed they can. But do we think that if they were to play a final, say, in Melbourne, can they still be one of these 3 big teams in the competition?
Josh?
Good teams don't care where they play, and Port Adelaide's a very good team. I think they were, I won't say unlucky because North Melbourne played very, very well.
When they lost to North Melbourne? Yeah.
When they lost to North Melbourne in round 3, I think it was.
Correct.
3 or 4. They did lose Monfries and Wingard at half time. And that takes the wind out of any team. You lose 2 players halfway through the game, it takes the wind out of any team.
Of course.
So, and they still only managed to lose by 7 points and took it right to the end. So,
I'm not denying they are an exceptional football club at the moment, playing close to their best football. But all I'm saying is we're yet to see them tested in Melbourne. So North Melbourne, they've lost to. We're yet to see some consecutive performances out away from Adelaide Oval where they can prove that they can keep up this kind of form at anywhere and any time.
Well, I think that they definitely can. Just because I think the ground only really impacts, basically, if you've got a big supporter base, there's, the support. Yep, your team morale is lifted in terms of, testing phases of the game. And second, you might say that because they practice on the ground, they're more used to the, dimensions or whatever. But I think Port Adelaide, they build their game around things that aren't really specific to any ground, such as work rate. It's not like, on Adelaide Oval, we work 90%, and then on Etihad, we were working about 80%.
Oh, of course not.
It's wherever we play, that work rate remains consistent. Same with their disposal efficiency by foot. It remains the same no matter where you play. The only thing I can see being impacted is maybe their structures or something like that. But, like Josh said, good teams don't really. I can see them being.
I guess we'll wait and see.
There is another side playing in this game.
There is.
GWS.
Apologies to the Greater Western Sydney Giants.
the best team song in the entire AFL.
Really?
Can we have a...
For sure.
Better than Richmond?
Oh, yeah. I love the GWS
Could you give us a few bars?
I'm not singing it, but I love the GWS theme song.
They kicked 13-16 against the Gold Coast Suns.
Yep.
Gold Coast probably still would have won, but the scoreline could have been a bit closer if they'd taken their opportunities in front of goal.
Yep.
Callum Ward, I'm really loving the stuff he's doing.
Yep.
He was
courageous.
He was knocked out last week against Adelaide by Richie Douglas. Came back this week, got 32 touches, was very, 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 very good.
Yep. And he has been quite a few times this season. I know he's been in the team of the week on quite a few occasions, and it's great to see him finally standing up and being that leader that they need to build the side around.
GWS, I loved watching them play because they always take the game on. They're always willing to, look inboard for that runner in the middle or even just go straight down the middle. You see Shaw and Hunt take the kickouts and just hoist a big one straight down to the centre of the ground. They love taking the game on. And I think that's an excellent game structure that they've got. The worst thing that Leon Cameron could do to these kids is be like, yep, we're going to adopt the Melbourne/St Kilda game style. We're just going to chip it all the way along the boundaries and see if we can get... He's going to just take it on, Your young, fit kids that have all been taken very highly in the draft. Yep. I'm going to back your skills. I'm going to back the pace that you have and your judgment. Sometimes it works for them, sometimes it doesn't. That's why you either see them pull off upset wins, like with Sydney, or you see them get absolutely belted, like they were with Port or whatever.
Yep.
So hang on before we go.
Okay.
There was one player, I'm struggling to think of his name, but there was one player that played in the reserves on the weekend.
Dylan Shield?
No, it wasn't.
Wiley.
Mark Wiley had 39 touches and 3 goals.
I was going to say, you'll be struggling here if you can't think of his name.
Mark Wiley. I'll be very, very surprised if he's not in the side this week after a performance like that.
Yeah, for sure.
39 and 3, that's a fair.
Guess we'll wait and see. Who are we tipping, guys?
Port Adelaide, comfortably, 73 points.
I've got Port by 39 points. I think they were very good on the weekend, but up at Star Trek Oval, they might be a little bit closer. A little bit.
I think Port will win by about 50.
50? Moving on, Adelaide versus Melbourne, Saturday afternoon at Adelaide Oval. Last time these two teams met, it was Adelaide by 68 points. What do we think, guys?
Danger, danger, danger. He's just starting to hit some really, really good form. Rodney, he's... I thought he was a little... I mean, I don't give the votes on our page. I thought he was a little stiff to not be mentioned at all. I thought I would have given him 3, to be honest.
It is an Adelaide fan that gives the votes.
So yeah, it is an Adelaide fan, so I would have given him the 3, but not my decision. But
anyway.
Who did get Who got the 3? Tom Lynch?
Rory Sloane. And Tom Lynch got 2.
Batman. Oh, wow.
And Matty Boyd got 1, I think. So
he didn't get a vote.
Didn't get a vote at all.
All right.
Anyway, he's in some fine form at the moment. He had a slow start to the year, but now he's just picking up and he's raring to go. He always, from memory, he's always had that slow start to get going.
Okay.
But now he's...
Yeah, for sure. He made mincemeat of Lin Jong. Bulldogs are still throwing around that tagger role. They're like, you do it, you try it. They're trying, they're giving it to their youngsters and seeing if one of them can do it. Lin Jong got absolutely chopped up. Yeah. And as for Melbourne, at part of one of the scrappiest games that you'll see, I think that's 2 for Sydney now, isn't it? 2 very scrappy.
I almost fell asleep through that game.
Yeah.
Very, very ordinary.
Sydney's not known for absolutely belting their opponent.
Vinay's doing his best to talk about every team but the one we're previewing at the moment.
What are we doing, Adelaide and Melbourne, aren't we?
Yeah, we're just talking about Sydney right now. Anyway, go on.
Oh, I was, true. No, but Melbourne was in that game, I'm sorry. Yeah. But yeah, Melbourne, I thought they did well not to get smacked by Sydney. Although, Sydney rarely hand out beltings, but some of their players that were down on form, Dom Tyson showed something. Paul Roos has been under a lot of fire in the press. A lot of Melbourne fans want Jack Watts to go back to the VFL. Roos is saying no, he won't. So, I don't know. Maybe Roos has got some plans there for the Melbourne Demons.
They want to be good plans to help improve Jack Watts because he needs it.
Wow.
James Podsiadly and Josh Jenkins are providing a very good forward targets.
All of a sudden, the Adelaide forward line is starting to look very good. At the start of the season, in the season predictions, we sort of looked at that side and we thought Taylor Walker's out for quite a period of time. Podsiadly's coming to the end of his career. Jenkins has never really shown much. Who's going to kick the goals for them? But Jenkins and Podsiadly were very good on the weekend, and Taylor Walker made his return in the SANFL. So, that could be one of their strengths going forward rather than one of their weaknesses.
Tex was talking about coming back this week. He knows his body more than
He'll be
anyone.
one more week, surely. If he only played 3 quarters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He knows his body better than anyone. The Adelaide Medicos know what's going on, but as Nick said, surely he will have one more week under his belt in the Sandful.
Yep, I'd agree with you, boys.
Bernard Vince coming up against his
old side.
His old side. He loves that football club, but he took a better opportunity at Melbourne. Sanderson wasn't. It was made public that Sanderson probably wasn't the biggest fan of Bernie Vince and his work ethic. So out the door he went. But it'd be interesting to see what type of player Bernie Vince will come as on Saturday afternoon against his old side.
So who are we tipping, guys?
Adelaide.
Adelaide? How much?
56.
I've got them by 38 points. I think they'll get the job done comfortably at Adelaide Oval against Melbourne. What do you think, Vinay?
I reckon Adelaide Oval, 60 points.
60 points. Brisbane versus Sydney, Saturday night at the Gabba. Last time these two teams met, it was Sydney by 60 points.
No.
Lance Franklin.
No.
Vinay, what did you think about Lance Franklin on the weekend?
Franklin. I've been absolutely salivating. All week I've been salivating at the thought of ripping into this absolute muppet of a human being.
I think I'm going to have to concede defeat.
You know what
Just let Vinay go.
I'm going to very briefly touch on this. You'd think there at home that I'm going to talk about him crashing his car into 4 other cars. No, I'm not, because his life off the footy field is none of our business.
Yep.
We're no one to pass judgment. But when he plays on that footy field, I can judge him all I want. And saying that he played on that footy field is a very generous compliment because he did everything but play.
What would you rate his game out of 10?
Oh, my goodness.
-6?
Again, very generous. Very, very generous. That's all I'm going to say about Lance Franklin. Josh, you can pick your mic up again. We're looking at Brisbane and Sydney.
Can you wake me up now? Boring. They're not just a one-man side.
No, they're not. No, they're not. And one guy I do really, really want to touch on quickly is Luke Parker.
Done.
26 disposals, a goal. He had 3 behind, so he could have kicked 4 goals. Laid several tackles, 2 contested marks. He's an absolute gem, and I can't believe he's only 21 years old.
He is a very good footballer.
Yeah.
Very good footballer. I said a couple of weeks ago, he's going to be the player that's going to take over Jude Bolton's role.
Yeah.
They're moulding him very well
to
take over that role, but he is a super, super footballer. Adam Goods made his return on the weekend.
Showed some good signs.
Almost kicked a goal with his first kick. The Raw when he came on, there was only 25,000 people there, but the Raw when he came on was massive.
Well, he hadn't played in like 18 months or something, hadn't he?
No.
8 months, sorry.
8 months.
8
8
months.
months. But he came on, had a little bit of an impact, set up a couple of goals. I think he'll play the full game this week against Brisbane. There is another prospect for the Sydney Swans before we move on to Brisbane. This could be the first game we could see the Big Four. The Big Four. Kurt Tippett, Lance Franklin, Adam Goods, and Sam Reid all in the 4 line.
Boy, that is some tall timber.
That is some very tall timber. And
I just, in all seriousness, want to see Kurt Tippett and Lance Franklin playing together. I know you're telling us not to talk about Lance Franklin anymore, but we've talked about it in previous weeks, how when there's this big, tall forward by himself, he can attract more attention in the double team. The players can look to him more than they should, like Hawthorn used to Franklin at Hawthorn. It'll be good to see when Sam Reid's back and playing and Kurt Reid's back and playing, how they all work together.
Correct. Jack Redden, Josh.
Jack Redden, he was fantastic against the Saints in Wellington. The Brisbane Lions had to go out of the country to get their first win. but they got it in the end. They played some very good football. They led for the majority of the game.
Yep, they did. Yeah.
Nick's chief sandcastle maker,
Trent West had
Trent West
the best
was
game
one
of
of
his
the
career.
One of the best on the ground.
Had the
Playing
best
out
game
of his
career.
skin. Took a good mark on the weekend too.
He did. Joel Patfull was brilliant. Kept the superstar champion Nick Riewoldt very quiet. Only had the one goal, didn't he? And that was in the last term.
I'm pretty sure
Team
he
of the week.
only had the one goal. The round 6 Rising Star nominee is James Aish, taking a pick 7 in last year's draft.
What a super game he played.
Yeah, he was
Especially that last quarter.
touted as the number 1 draft pick before the draft. Had a little bit of injury trouble,
Yep.
but picked up 26 disposals, one of the best players on the ground. So congratulations to James Aish.
Quickly, Jack Redden is now becoming probably one of their best midfielders. Oh, well, he already was. Arguably maybe their best midfielder. He's averaged 24 disposals and 8 tackles this year. He's chimed in with 3 goals as well.
Yep.
Takes 5 marks a game, so he works around the ground. He's got an enormous run, work rate, clearance machine. He's really helping out Rockcliffe in that midfield.
Who are we tipping, boys?
I've got Sydney by 31 points up the Gabba. Brisbane, it was good to see them get their first win of the season, but I don't think they'll mount too much of a challenge against the Swans.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Sydney by 44.
I'm very, very tempted. Yes.
No, you're not.
I'm
He teases us with these-
extremely
No,
tempted.
you're not.
At the Gabba. Who did Brisbane play last at the Gabba? Richmond. Oh, they lost, didn't they?
They got flogged.
All right, yeah, okay. Sydney by about 20.
What are you?
You are all talk.
Very tempted, I'm telling you.
You are all talk.
I'm very, very tempted.
Talk the talk,
I'm
but
not
don't
doing
walk
it.
the
I
I've
don't
walk.
need-
never
try to go
seen him
here.
go with one of these strange
No,
tips. When
neither have I.
I'm really tempted, but
Really tempted, but never do.
there's never any money where
Do it.
Anyway,
You're not going to be able to do it. Solid as a rock, Josh Rickard.
Next
Essendon,
game.
Essendon versus the Western Bulldogs, Saturday night at Etihad Stadium. Last time these two teams played, it was Essendon by 31 points.
I'm going
Okay.
to chime in quickly. I'm tempted again, Josh.
Oh my god!
Honestly, I'm not just saying this. I legitimately think that Essendon is as bare and as vulnerable as they'll ever be. The last 2 games they've played, they've literally played 2 out of the last 8 quarters. They showed up for 2 and they fell asleep for the rest. That's it. I reckon if you want a very, very vulnerable, confidence shot Essendon, you play them this week.
Tell us what you really
So
think.
many of their players, Jake Carlisle, his confidence is rock bottom. He has to get out of that side. He needs to go back to the VFL, find some form. You've got some absolute, I'm not going to say the word spuds because that's very harsh, but some very cringeworthy personnel in your defence. Jackson Merritt, steel side bottom, kicked 3 goals and gained 10 disposals in 1 quarter. Where in the world was Jackson Merritt? Where was he? He was his direct opponent. Here's Steele kicking 2 of those goals from the exact same spot, by the way. And where is he? After the first goal, he might have thought, all right, yeah, it's just a goal. After the second goal, he might have thought, all right, that's probably on me. What does he think
probably
after
get
the
on
third
him.
one? Where were you, Jackson? I'm sorry, but I'm off the Merritt bandwagon. I'm done with Jackson Merritt, and I'm also done
After
with
one game.
I'm also done with Michael Hibbert. I've had enough of watching him literally kick it 2 meters to the man standing next to him, then get it back, then kick it another bare distance, and that's it. He has to influence the play more. If he plays off half back, he has to get involved in scoring chains. Last year, Michael Hibbert was a brilliant defender because you saw him push up. He kicked several goals. He was so involved in the scoring chains last year.
He kicked 7 for the year.
He kicked goals. I don't think he's kicked a goal this year. Michael Hibbert needs to lift.
Not many defenders do kick goals.
You're not sitting in the back flank just to make your stats look good and to please all the Supercoach owners at home. You're sitting on the back flank to influence play and feed the wingmen. They're hungry, Michael. End rant.
You guys
Over
didn't
to
tell
you.
me the Vinay roast was coming back into the show.
Over to you, Ricard. I'm done, boys. Sorry about that.
I'm speechless. Josh, what do you think? He's got nothing. Vinay's just torn them to shreds.
He didn't tell me he was doing that before the show. And
I alluded to it.
You've caught me off guard.
Anyway.
The Bombers, have been disappointing the last 2 weeks. I'll give you that. I'm not sure I agree with Jackson Merritt and Michael Hibbert, but we're all here to have our say. But
Yep.
I think Tom Bell Chambers, Brendan Goddard, and Heath Hocking will come back this week. David Myers, unfortunately, will miss another 2 to 3 with a hamstring. Patrick Ambrose played his first game back from a quad injury in the VFL on the weekend. Got through okay. I think, it's frustrating to see the Bombers play one very good quarter, especially on Anzac Day. I thought, gee, hello, we're in for a very good win here. And all of a sudden, the score's level at half time and it's all Collingwood.
Yeah,
So
you're right. Yeah.
I think Essendon's biggest problem is they defend pretty well the entire game.
Yeah.
But there's a period of 5 to 10 minutes where they leak 2 to 3 goals. They don't know how to stop that run.
Yep.
And it's after those 3 goals that they say, okay, hang on. It should be after the 2 quick goals that Collingwood got. It was through Jesse White and Steele Sidebottom.
Yep.
Essendon should have said, okay, let's slow it down, stop the momentum, get our hands on the ball, and go from there.
Now, there is another team playing this week. It's the Western Bulldogs. They had 2 big opportunities to win that game late against Adelaide, it was.
They did.
Vinay, what did you think?
I thought, the Bulldogs, they were very, very good. They kicked the first 4 goals of the game, I think it was. They were off to a flying start. They've got all their key personnel back, so they can't blame it on injury anymore. Matthew Boyd played he's continuing to impress me.
Very
He's
good.
literally, Matthew Boyd is back to the Matthew Boyd of old. People thought he'd decline and slowly, fade into the shadows, make way for the youngsters, but he's just phenomenal. Their forward line was very, very disappointing. Tom Campbell, I think it was. He started off really well, youngster, and then he got subbed off, was very quiet. Liam Jones. Oh, my goodness.
Look out.
He started as a key forward, and he was moved to the back line later on as a key defender just because he was doing nothing in the forward line. He kicked no goals, kicked no behinds, had no score assists, laid 1 tackle, had no inside 50s. He was the epitome of useless.
How many marks did he take?
I think 1. No, 0. He didn't have any marks either. No marks either. He was absolutely...
Epitome of useless.
He was absolutely useless. I think he was just, they need more forwards to perform. On the plus side, Tory Dixon was excellent. I really, really rate that guy. He's
former Noble Park boy.
He's a very, very good player. He's also a former Haileybury boy. But honestly, he's a very, very good player. He's a medium-sized forward, but he plays like a tall. He was really, really just chopping up the Adelaide defence. He was playing on Matthew Yench, and he was just making him look bad.
Before we give our tips, boys, obviously the big one going into this game will grab a lot of attention will be Stewie Cramery coming up against his old side. Seems to be the round for playing against your old side.
Yeah.
Stewie Cramery coming up against his old side, the Bombers. I think there's a bit of feeling there from the playing group at Essendon that they're a little disappointed that Cramery left. So I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe they'll shake hands at the end of the game, have a bit of a hug and everything like that. But
no holds barred when that siren starts.
Yeah, I just think there might be a little bit of feeling in this game. Before we tip, Jay Carlisle, he must stay in the side. Must stay in the side. And you know why? Look at me.
Go ahead.
Look at me.
Go ahead.
He's played 5 games permanently as a forward.
Okay.
How many 5 gamers come into the competition and have an impact straight away?
He took a mark. He took a mark in the dying minutes of that game, Essendon Collingwood. He had 1 chance to show that, look, at least I can still mark and goal. He went back, took a deep breath. You could tell he was nervous. He knew the moment was there. He went in and he sprayed it out on the full. It's not just about tall forwards developing here. Joe Danaher is a developing tall forward. Carlisle just has no confidence.
Dane Swan did the exact same thing in the third quarter.
I'm not willing to compare Dane Swan and Jake Carlisle at this stage.
Neither am I, but still, Dane Swan took a mark in the exact same spot, had a shot for goal, and kicked it out in the full
Dane
as well.
Swan kicked 4 goals. That was Carlisle's only chance.
I think I'll be tipping Essendon this week, guys, by 24 points. What do
you must persist with him. You drop him, his confidence is going to go lower, and he may not come back.
Fair call.
Keep persisting with him. Tom Bellchambers into the side this week will take a lot of pressure off him.
Okay.
You got Ryder and Bellchambers rotating through.
Yep.
Carlisle and what's his name? Joe Danaher.
Joe Danaher.
Permanently forward. Yep. Carlisle could take the third defender.
Look, I hope you're right. I don't mind buckets.
I love buckets. I'll back him to the hills every single day of the week. Essendon by 29.
Even Saturday, Nick.
Essendon by 24. I have Vinay. Who are you tipping?
Yeah, I'm going to go Essendon by 1.
North Melbourne versus Gold Coast, Sunday afternoon at Etihad Stadium.
Put them on the line.
Last time these two teams played, it was Gold Coast by 15 points. Josh, what do you think?
Put them on the line, will you?
No, we're going to
North Melbourne.
Gold Coast, yep.
North were fantastic against Fremantle. I thought they were going to get blown out of the water, to be honest. Fremantle kicked the first 4 goals.
Yep.
Don't give me that look. Fremantle kicked the first 4 goals. I thought, here we go again.
Yep.
North are going to put in another ordinary performance. They chipped away. Brent Harvey just said, Ryan Crowley, see you later.
He did.
Took him to the
How many
cleaners.
score involvements did he get in the end of the game?
Oh, like 15 or something.
It was
ridiculous.
20, wasn't it?
Yeah,
It was a ridiculous amount.
20 score involvements, Brent Harvey. Yeah, that's.
Vinay's decided it was 20.
I'm pretty sure it was 20. I read that it was. Didn't Matt say it was 20?
Okay.
The North Melbourne person did say it was 20. But anyway, Fremantle's sort of in the same road as Essendon at the moment. They're very vulnerable. And North Melbourne knew that and they cashed in. They've got one of the most talented sides. And Andrew Swallow had 23 disposals, I think.
23 disposals in 3 quarters for North Ballarat in his comeback game. So I think much like Taylor Walker, he'll have another couple of weeks in the VFL before he comes back in.
I tell you what, on North Melbourne, I think I still haven't got a tip correct in a North Melbourne game so far this year.
So whoever you tip in this one, I'll be tipping the opposite.
It is ridiculous. It is one week they have a terrible loss and then the next week they beat Fremantle at Patterson Stadium. How do you read this team?
On Gold Coast quickly, I thought, again, they were also extremely good against GWS. They matched them with that really attacking style of play.
Yep.
I reckon this will be an excellent game to watch because both these teams don't like just, sitting back and playing a boring game. They love to attack through the centre.
The Gold Coast Suns could potentially get Harley Bennell back this week as well.
Okay.
Kicked 25 goals. Kicked 3 goals on the weekend, 25 possessions played
Wow.
through the midfield. So he's a chance to come back.
He'd be big.
Ablett, that goal he kicked was just...
If you have not seen that goal, do yourself a favour. Go
one
to
way,
AFL.com.
then another, and then bang.
Oh,
He's
wow.
the best ever.
He
The
is.
best ever.
Yes, correct.
Used to play Geelong, didn't he?
I reckon you guys have had enough big calls for
Boys, who are we tipping?
I'll be tipping... I think I'll tip North Melbourne. I really want to tip Gold Coast.
So we'll tip Gold Coast.
The Suns then, yeah.
No, I think I will tip North Melbourne. They've just beaten Fremantle at Patterson Stadium, and that for me is enough to say they'll win this game.
Fair call.
So 13 points.
Yeah, surely. I mean, I was just kidding around then. I'm not going to tip the Gold Coast Suns, but I don't think they're without a chance.
Yep.
They're playing some very good football. They're 4-2. Cade Colajasny.
He's a star.
I finally got his name down pat.
Yeah.
But he's playing some very good football as well. You can see why he was a top 5 pick. But
Round 7, and Vinay and I were still arguing about how to pronounce his name in the car.
It is Colajasny. Nick thought it was Colajashny.
I don't know.
Colajasny.
Move on.
But yeah, North are just high on confidence at the moment, so I think they'll get it done by about 2 goals.
Vinay?
If it was at Metricon, I'd tip Gold Coast, but it's not, so I'm going to tip North.
Short and sweet, I like it.
Yeah.
Geelong versus Richmond.
That's a change.
Sunday afternoon at the MCG.
I'm going to tip the Tigers here, boys.
Last time these two teams met, it was Geelong by 44 points. You guys having fun over there?
That much? It's a couple of kicks.
Geelong were comprehensively beaten on the weekend.
They were.
I think is the best way to sum it up.
I think both these teams were comprehensively beaten on the weekend.
Both these teams.
They're both coming off very poor losses, and they're going to be licking their wounds. It's just a matter of who can bounce back better. Obvious answer to me is Geelong.
Yep.
Richmond's, they've had numerous chances to bounce back from poor losses. Every time, what they've given us is either a very marginal win or another poor loss. So they're all over the place, Richmond, at the moment. They haven't got their forward line right. They're chopping and changing. They're playing all these rookies. They haven't done too many things correctly. Ben Lennon is a chance to come into this side.
Took 16 marks in Richmond's draw against Frankston.
Draw
in the VFL, 99 apiece. So he was one of the better players on the ground. Nick, there's 2 players I want to ask you about. I said there'd only be one.
2 players. Okay.
2 players. One is Stephen Motlop, who's on the run sheet.
Yep.
The other one is your first round draft pick, Darcy Lang, who was best on ground on the weekend against North Ballarat.
Was he? That's interesting.
He was.
Coming back from a broken leg is Darcy Lang. Stephen Motlop I'll touch on first. I think it was an absolute joke that he was named in the side on the weekend. There was no way he was going to play. He played a half of football in the VFL. He just wasn't coming back. I think I would say 50-50 this week to come back. I would very much like to see him. He is an absolute star. He is a gun. I know you don't like that word, Josh. But
I agree with you. I like Stephen Motlop.
Stephen Motlop is a gun. Like Cyril Rioli, he's a very similar player in that he doesn't need a heap of disposals to make magic happen. He just dances around his opponents, kicks goals from everywhere, just does brilliant runs and picks up the ball. He does everything.
Nick's favourite stat last year was he kicked the most goals from open play.
The most goals from Stephen Motlop, the most goals from open play of any player in the AFL last season.
He told me every week.
I told him every single week.
He would. You know who we haven't heard about in a while?
Who? Josh Caddy.
Ding.
Yeah, well, he's out.
Out
He's
for
out
8
with
to
a
10 weeks at the moment. I don't
broken
think we
foot.
had a chance to mention that. Anyway, Josh Caddy counters on the
Ding.
back burner at the moment.
Richmond, on the other hand, Sam Lloyd was very average, I thought.
Yep.
He had a brilliant first game. We
3 games in.
Yeah, he was very average on the weekend.
Most 3 gamers are.
No, but he was subbed off very early, and that's the point.
Vinay
I'm
is
trying to
showing no mercy.
make. No.
to
What
that.
I'm saying is he's a good player. He won the equivalent of the Brownlow medal in the VFL last year. So he's obviously an extremely talented player.
He drew with Jordan Schroeder in that Geelong.
There you go. So he's obviously
Schroeder.
Schroeder.
Anyway, go.
he's obviously a very, very talented player. He gets a lot of the ball and he tackles a lot. His efficiency was very poor though on the weekend.
Yep.
But most of Richmond's was. Very few of them were good by foot. Then he was subbed off very early as well. Wasn't even in the latter stages. He was subbed off very early for Matty McDonough. So I don't know if you'll see him in the side this week. I really do smell a Lloyd out, Lennon in kind of thing. But, you know.
Similar players as well. So
Very similar players as well. Similar build, similar sort of.
before we move on,
Yep.
Richmond should get Brett Delidio and Alex Rance back.
They've been
This
missing
week.
Deledio. They really have.
They really have been missing
the time.
Brett Delidio. However, Damien Hardwick, I love the guy. I love him as a coach. I loved him as a player, both at Essendon and Port Adelaide. I just think he made a bit of a cop-out yesterday. He said, when you lose 3 of your best 6 players, being Delidio, Rance, and Marriage, I think that's an absolute cop-out. Absolute cop-out. If you can't cover 3 players, you've got big problems.
Yeah, for sure.
Big problems.
It's never good when coaches say that, is it? John Longmire did that a few weeks back and we didn't like it. If you've lost a game, you don't blame it on the fact that you're missing some key players, no matter how key they are. You know, that's why AFL teams don't just have 22 players. That's why they have a massive squad of 40 to choose from.
I'll tell you what, this is the worst possible time you could have brought that up because it leads into my next point. I'm not going to take away from Geelong's loss. They were very poor and Port Adelaide were extremely good. But I think Geelong's depth was tested on the weekend. Andrew Mackie is someone we really missed. And you can see the difference seeing a player like... Hear me out. You can see the difference seeing a player like Jackson Thurlow who's still learning the ropes coming in. George Burberry, there's a lot on his shoulders at the moment up forward. And he's really struggling to show much. So it's the first time that's something that Geelong are lacking in relation to the other 2 powerhouses at the moment in Port Adelaide and Hawthorn, in that when their best players come out, someone can just step right in. Whereas Geelong, they are struggling to fill that void. Yep. I'm not blaming the loss whatsoever on the injuries, but I just think it's an area that's a bit of a worry at the moment for the Cats.
Tips, boys?
Who are we tipping?
I will be tipping Geelong. I think they'll bounce back very well against the Tigers. You very rarely see them lose 2 in a row, and they'll win by 42 points.
I can't tip Richmond. Can't tip him. Geelong by, what have I got here, 38.
Yeah, Richmond have no momentum. I'm tempted. No, I'm not tempted. This time
He's
I'm
always
not. No, this time I'm not tempted. I was just joking that time. But
of course.
yeah, Geelong, you know, like you said, they're going to respond better from the loss than Richmond will. So Geelong by like 30.
West Coast versus Fremantle. It's the last game of the round.
derby.
Sunday afternoon at Patterson Stadium. Last time these 2 teams played, it was Fremantle by 28 points. Vinay, I think we might be here all week, but I'll let you kick us off here.
Look, Fremantle have had the wood on West Coast in the past few derbies. It is a fact. But
Derbies, isn't it?
I like to say derby.
They call it a
the things
derby?
these boys argue about.
We'll go with whatever. But, you know, I think West Coast, the last 2 games that they've played have been really, really disappointing in the sense that a lot of opportunities have gone to waste. They kicked 1-8 in that last quarter against Carlton, and that game was decided by less than a kick. When you kick 1-8, that's a potential to kick 9 goals in a quarter.
Yep.
You know, you even convert a ninth of that, and you've got the win. So, you know, I think it's a little... Sorry, well, like, you know, it's really disappointing to see that they're getting these opportunities, but they're not making the most of them. Fremantle, on the other hand, I think, like I said, like with Essendon, they're at their most vulnerable right now. The only few players I can see really carrying the workload there is Nathan Fyfe and Michael Johnson.
Yep.
Pavlich was negated with relative ease by the North Melbourne Kangaroos. I don't really see guys like Daniel Pearce, Chris Mayne, you know, the outside players, the ones that you don't look at the stars, but the ones that, you know, add the a little extra. They're not really doing much. I think it'll be a very good game. For West Coast, Shannon Hearn could come back this week. which will be a very, very welcome exclusion because that
Inclusion.
inclusion, sorry. Because that halfback flanker role for West Coast is legitimately cursed.
Yeah.
Bo Waters played it, went out with injury, bang. Shannon Hearn played it, bang, gone with injury. Xavier Ellis played, he's done with injury as well. Andrew Gaff was playing it for a little while, which was comical to watch. He's not a halfback flanker, unfortunately. Good on you for trying the Gaffy. In any case, I'm liking West Coast chances here, boys. 2 very sore losses. They're going to be really hurting. 2 games they should have won against Port and Carlton. I reckon this is where, you rock the vending machine, it doesn't fall over the first 2 times, and the third time it goes over.
Maybe Josh Kennedy on the halfback flank, you think?
He's better than Tom Hawkins. So what do you think, Josh?
I have to agree with a few things he said there.
A few.
Okay.
A few.
I think Fremantle's who Fremantle are missing the most. That's Michael Walters. Up forward, he's been so dominant the last year and a half, and they're really missing him up forward.
You're right.
Crozier, I like Hayden. Yeah. I used to umpire him in cricket. He's a terrific kid.
Wobble.
Name drop. But obviously he's inexperienced. He's going to take time and everything like that. A player like Michael Walters has got that experience. Kicks multiple goals week in, week out. He's a massive loss. Chris Mayne isn't the same player he was last year. He's struggling to get going this year. Just think they've got a bit of problem. I'll get it out. A few problems. That's the one. A few problems up forward at the moment. But I think they'll get the job done against your boys. One other thing, sorry, before we give our tips, unless you want to say on. No?
Go on.
They're disciplined. If I was Ross Lyon at the moment, I'd be absolutely fuming. Zach Dawson was very lucky to get off the little elbow to the head to Brent Harvey this week. They had 3 players in the waffle get reported. Yep. One of them being Anthony Morabito, who's getting better and better each week.
Tom Vanderloo
and Jack Hanneth as well. So not big names, but this goes through the club. This goes through the list.
You're right.
They had Fife earlier, who may have been a bit unlucky, but rules are rules.
Yep.
Michael Johnson got a reprimand for his
hit on
Aaron Black.
Yes.
Zach Dawson's already spent a week on the sidelines through suspension.
Discipline's all over the place, you're right. Yeah.
Absolutely right. And if I was Ross Lyon, I'd be absolutely furious. I'd be saying, boys, pull your heads in.
Yeah. Well, he is saying that. He said that quite a few times in press conferences.
Hayden Ballantyne as well is another one.
Correct.
Yep. So they've got to be more disciplined if they want to get back to the grand final and have a crack at winning
it.
Who
did Fremantle lose to? Who did they play last week?
Last week they played Sydney.
And they lost?
They lost.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. All right.
All right, boys. Who are we tipping?
Tipping.
Bit of a musical question there for Rico.
We're nearing the end of the show.
Fremantle by 18 points, guys.
Fremantle.
I'm going to go the other way here, Mary Poppins.
How many points, Josh?
Mary Poppins, 2.
I'm going to go the other way.
Okay.
West Coast are on the verge. Legitimately, both those games, if one person had literally managed to find the middle of the big sticks, it would have been a 4 points to us and not to them.
The goals?
If, buts and maybes.
I guess, but I think that such minor game-deciding mistakes can only be made so many times before the club. They're a proud playing group, and I think they'll pull up their socks, and nothing lights a fire like seeing your crosstown rivals
in the derby.
And Shannon Hearn coming back would be massive. So I'm going to tip West Coast by 25 points.
Interesting. That brings us to the end of another episode of Beyond the Boundary.
Absolutely. If we got our first email on the weekend.
Oh, really?
No,
we did.
Finally got
I think his
feedback.
name was Shane, wasn't it? Sean. Must have been Sean. Was Sean.
Yeah, that was a really,
Thanks, Sean, for sending it in. You're our first one. That's fantastic.
If anyone else wants to be the second, btbafl@live.com.au.
I actually think we got a plug on the radio as well, didn't we?
We did get a plug on the radio. On 3AW.
Thank you to that for Stephanie, I think her name was.
Stephanie, yeah.
Stephanie.
Thanks a lot, Stephanie.
But make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm really struggling tonight.
We've struggled the whole show.
But our Twitter handles, Gyson, JRicard 1991, VK Lax. Subscribe up in this corner up here.
And make sure any feedback, let us know in the comment section on Facebook, on Twitter, wherever. We love the feedback. As we said just before, we love the email.
And thank you to Valley Arm for their support.
And our producer, Justin Westhoff, we will see you next week.
Absolutely, boys. Thanks for joining me. It's been a tough week on my end. I unfortunately lost my grandfather, but I'll miss him. And this show is dedicated to him. I didn't tell you that earlier.
Yep.
But this show will be dedicated to him.
Good stuff, man.
I miss you, Pa, but hope you rest in peace, mate. We'll be back next week.